Want more revenue without services? Add Tressic to your stack to turn conversations into outcomes. See how at Tressic.cloud.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm so glad to have with me my very good friend Andy Abramson. Andy, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Doug.
All right. Live from Las Vegas, I think.
Live from Las Vegas.
I can feel the excitement.
It's 80 degrees.
80 degrees.
Everybody comes sometime to Vegas. I mean, I saw a lot of people during Enterprise Connect. I'm going to see a bunch of people during Channel Partners, which hopefully I'll run into you. Then we've got AB, I've got Peak. I mean, there's more conferences in the month of April. I've told people locally, don't try and schedule with me. I'll have to tell you when I can, because it's week after week after week. And what happens is, because I live in Las Vegas, the day before someone shows up, I get this text or a phone call.
Right.
Oh, I'm coming to the show. Can we meet?
Right. Everybody,
So
right?
I don't schedule my life other than waiting for the phone to ring.
It is a tremendously great location. It is sort of the center of the known world. So
you do. I mean, look, you had HIMSS last month. You had Enterprise Connect last month.
And you get CP now. Yeah.
ES was in January. It's you got Cisco Live in a couple months. Sooner or later, I see everybody I know in telecom just by not going anywhere.
Well, in that vein, Andy, let's talk about what you've been writing about a lot on Substack and on LinkedIn. We've been hearing a lot about the changing landscape of voice, AI, and transcription market. You've been talking about Zoom and Slack. So there seems to be a big shift. So let's first of all define that. How do you see that?
Well, let's take a step back and explain to everybody what's going on.
Okay.
We've all been using voice communication since the dawn of time. We spoke, we had a telephone, eventually we got a car phone, then a mobile phone. Then we got applications that work over the internet. Thank you, Jeff Pulver and the Pulver Act.
Right.
And we had companies from the dawn of time creating voice applications that are either standalone or which can integrate into something else. Communicano, my agency, has been at the middle of this nexus since 1999 with soft switch companies, application servers, the core infrastructure, and then the applications like Grand Central, and working with the Skype store and being around what Michael Robertson did with Gizmo Project and many others, Talk Plus, David Beckemeyer's Televolution. The list goes on and on. Jeff Pulver, when he did Free World Dial-Up. We're in the middle of all that, either using it, consuming it, or representing it in some way. And 25 or so companies that we've worked with have been acquired deep in the communication space. So we understand how voice goes over the net. Well, then along came conferencing, whether it was WebEx or freeconferencecall.com. And sooner or later, people started recording the calls. And that became a permanent record. And then sooner or later, transcription arrived, and you were able to take that content that was recorded and get a transcript of it. Now, how deep are we into transcription? In 1996, Communicano worked with a company called Mobile Word, which was a mobile dictation and transcription service long before anyone was doing it. Bob Cox started it. It's one of the few companies I ever actually pitched to work. And unfortunately, Bob was ahead of his time. But you just literally dialed a number and recorded. So, and then the next day or 2 days later, there was a perfectly typed transcript. Of course, you had to know how to say things like paragraph, period, comma, new paragraph, exclamation point. You had to know how to do transcription as if you had a dictaphone. So that was a learning process. Well, let's fast forward to the late 2000s. Everyone like Zoom and WebEx and dial-pad meetings all had, in late 2010s rather, all had recording. Recording was no longer anything what I would call more than table stakes. And along came AI. And AI changed everything. And when I say that, Whisper from OpenAI, one of their platform programs, once you learned how to use the OpenAI APIs, a very smart guy who's a big Notion pundit and influencer named Thomas Frank published a how to take your recordings, transcribe them using Whisper, and send them to your Notion, but not just word for word, but how you could profile what you wanted. So summary transcript, key points, to-dos, sentiment analysis, everything that you started to do. So in 2023, I took what Thomas built and I built my own transcription engine. And I said, this is better than Grain, or this is better than this is better than that. Because up until then, everybody was just doing transcription. Well, over the last 3 years, since the Netscape moment of OpenAI, this stuff has blown up. And everybody's doing transcription. Everybody is doing agentic AI capability. And I have a whole website of thought processing and applications, and I'll share it with you later, and you can publish it if you want, that I built using Notion, using AI tools to assemble it, that have all of these that I can find, and there's plenty more that I probably haven't found. But what happened in the last month between Zoom and Slack have pretty much created a moment where a lot of these applications like Fireflies, which you're using, Otter, Read AI,
Right.
I think they're going to go the way of the dodo bird if they don't get smart. So that's the context around all this.
So Andy, are you saying, it sounds like you're saying that transcription it's like table stakes?
Transcription is air.
Is air. Okay, it's beyond table stakes.
Air. It's water. Yeah. There's no reason other than some very, deep privacy advocates who don't think anybody should do anything with anything at all. What you can do with a recording these days, for example, I use Timeless as one of the tools I use, because Timeless does a lot more than just record and transcribe. It actually has a lot of agentic AI capabilities behind it. Well, I can write what I expect to get out of each type of call I have. Is it a new business call? Is it a client call? Is it an exploratory discussion? Is it a call with my banker?
Right.
And I can get a preset output the way I want to see it. Now, that's good for post-call, what I call post-call analysis. But I can use Hedy in real time, and Hedy will make me the smartest person in the room, Hedy, because what it's doing is it's giving me in-session prompting, much like what a customer support person is getting with their decision support software on their screen. Well, I can then ask Hedy, can you clarify this for me? And it'll make me smarter, because it may be a topic I'm not familiar with, if that exists. And then I can ask an insightful question based on what's been told. Now, that's the state of the art. Things like Timeless, things like Hedy, things like Dialpad. And I'll talk all about that, because there's a big difference. You have pre-call, in-call, and post-call. And that's where all this is going. And then when Zoom did what they did and Slack did what they did, well, guess what? They just gutted about 90% of these so-called transcription services, because now you're taking the power of AI and making it deeper part of their product mix. But there's a difference, and we'll talk about that.
So are you kind of arguing that there's sort of the emergence of maybe a new platform layer around conversational data? Is that
absolutely
kind of where we're going?
We've been talking about VCons that Thomas Howell and Dan invented. Thomas is the father, Dan's the mother,
Right.
The whole VCon concept. But that's still post-call and then pre-call. The agentic AI layer, which exists, which is where companies like Dialpad, and all transparency, I am a shareholder. I have consulted to them on multiple occasions. Craig Walker is one of my closest friends in the world. The reality of it is that they built AI in at the core, so they can do more quickly and more deeply without having to try and jury rig or or make changes to. Let's think about it. From the day they started, their conferencing platform, originally called Uber Conference, with that great music on hold, we'll all remember, was designed with telephony in mind. They didn't build just an IP core and then say, oh, we need to bolt on telephony. Well, when it came time for AI, they didn't say, oh, we need to bolt on AI. They wired it in from the core out, which allows them to do more deeper things with it faster, sooner. And they did one other thing. They used their own LLM that they created from their sessions. That allowed them to have a much more focused platform versus going into Anthropic with Claude, or OpenAI with ChatGPT, or even Google's own platform. So they did some modeling maybe on Google, but at the end of the day, everything is there. So there's a big difference between a bolt-on like Zoom and what they're doing. Well, all of that, when I look at how I analyze calls, how I'm able to get my to-do list, how I'm able to ask questions, that's where your agentic AI layer needs to be. So it can't be a bolt-on. It has to be integral to the infrastructure.
So let me catch up for our channel, since we're about to go to channel partners, for our channel partner community, for our MSP community, for all the people out there in that group. What does this mean to me if I'm an MSP or channel partner? What can I do with this information?
If I'm a call recording company, I'm looking for a job.
Wow. So that's how disruptive this is.
I mean, is it going to be disruptive over the next 2 years? No, but I remember when I was guest lecturing for my good professor friend, Dr. James Mara at Temple, who retired about 8 or 9 years ago. I spoke for all the students of 27 years 2015 actually. He used to have me come in and lecture to his classes from about 1990 onward. I did it for about 23 years. Somewhere in the middle of the early 2000s, he asked me to step in and talk to his magazine sequence course, which is one I'd never really spoken to. I've spoken to the journalism courses, I spoke to the ad classes, the mass media classes. And he said, can you talk to the magazine sequence students and tell them what reality is? And I said to them, after I asked my usual 3 questions, which chewing gum is your favorite? They would all raise their hand. I said, good, there's the trash can. And I said, oh, by the way, what cell phones do you use? Nokia, BlackBerry, Samsung? They would raise their hand and say, good, turn them off. And then the third question was, how many of you are magazine sequence majors? And a lot of the hands went up. I said, good, change your major. And years later, when I spoke again to that group, he said, I wish I recorded Andy's comments from whatever year it was, because I was so spot on. The magazine industry, I said to them in the early 2000s, the industry won't be there in any way, shape, or form by the time you get out. And we've seen compression in all of journalism, in magazines, in newspapers, in radio, in television. We've seen the growth in streaming. Well, I was already into streaming 98 when Ken Rakowski and I started doing the World Tech Roundup. So being able to look ahead, look over the mountain, look around corners. When I say things like call recording, traditional call recording is dead. Traditional transcription is moving from the cancer ward to life support. Now, what is the new thing? It's agentic recording. It's voice AI. It's being able to do something with the content before it even gets delivered to the person who's having it, and then being able to recall from the content through conversational memory, because the conversation becomes the product, not the call. Now, that's a big differentiator. The conversation, I'm going to repeat that for everybody. The conversation is the product, not the call. The call is nothing but the medium.
And is that what we're selling? In other words,
well, I'm not selling.
Is that the opportunity?
I think that there's already a bunch of companies that are selling the conversation. We know that our good friends at Viconic, they're selling the conversation. We know that our friends at Dialpad, they're selling the conversation. They're not selling just the call. And that's the difference. Once you move from the call being the vessel, for example, when you go on a cruise, I know you've gone on cruises because we've talked from satellite when you're coming across the Atlantic on a repositioning cruise last year. You didn't buy the ship, you bought the cruise experience.
That's right.
So when you shift from, you're not buying, some people sail on certain ships, so they want to have a bucket list of ships they want to sail on. That's a different thing. But what are you really buying? You're buying the cruise. So the conversation becomes what you're buying. And the conversation is more than just that immediate exchange. Like, for example, right now, you and I are sort of having a conversation, but it's being recorded. It's being transcribed. It's indexable. Someone can research it. Someone will be able to go back in and find all the times I said Doug Green is awesome. They'll be able to find all the times I said there's no better place than Telecom Reseller to have your news if you're in the telecom industry. If there's nothing better than being a podcast guest with Doug Green. Well, if you go through the transcript and say, what did Andy say positively about Telecom Reseller or Doug Green? Boom. But now let's add an automated layer to that, an agentic layer, where automatically you're looking for positive sentiments that are said about you or about Telecom Reseller. Now it automatically kicks those out and gives you a real nice markdown. And you can take that and say, I want to always take these markdown files of positive comments made about this and immediately pump them into my website of what people say about TR or what people say about you. That's what we can do today with agentic AI. And that's why I say the conversation is the product, not the call.
Andy, who owns that conversation?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, if I go to name, image, and likeness rules, then I do. If you go to the standard, this broadcast is the exclusive broadcast of Telecom Reseller, may not be used without the express written consent of Doug Green and Telecom Reseller, without that, like they used to say in baseball.
Yeah.
You know, I did that by memory. There's no prompter in front of me.
Yeah, I heard that on the Blazers game last night. I heard exactly those words.
So who owns it? That's, you know, you own your name, image, and likeness.
Right.
You grant permission to the broadcaster to carry it. Where we get into things with VCons is a little deeper. VCons, I could actually say, you know what? I want Doug to have it, but he can't reuse it. Or I want Doug to reuse it, but he can only reuse it for 10 days. And then it goes behind a password protected site. And Doug and I split $20 every time somebody listens. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but without getting into ownership of data, because then you get into GDPR in Europe, you get into the Digital Copyright Act, the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act here in the States, you get into the California Consumer Privacy Act, you get into various state and local laws, which today, President Trump just pushed forward that states cannot do things. Like he's trying to stop them from passing laws in the prediction market. He's trying to get them to stop passing laws about AI. And the reason isn't he's not looking to be obstreperous. He's looking to let nascent industries have a chance to come forward and to develop their own controls. Remember, government that governs best governs least.
Governs least. Yeah.
And that's what President Trump is trying to do. And I'm not getting political here, whether I like it or not. I'm just saying the purpose behind what he's doing is to let nascent technologies have their chance to rise. It's like I'm a big proponent of AI in schools. I have a 10-year-old son, not allowed to use AI in school. No,
and yet the world he's going to live in is going to be AI.
I mean, he's got an iPad, he's got an iPhone, he's got a MacBook that I bought him for his birthday. All these things that he has that I'm empowering him to be ahead of. It's like taking away books from me when I was 10 years old. If you took books away when I was 10 and said, no, you can't read till you're 14, well, then I wouldn't be smart at 14. So I believe that we should not be holding technology back. And when it comes back to what's going on with Slack and Zoom and Microsoft and Google, they are embedding these types of tools to where they're table stakes and it's just there. You don't need to go find a third party to do it. That's what makes what Dialpad's been doing for years, what Zoom is starting to do. But the difference is Zoom is an add-on, Dialpad is wired from the core.
Andy, as we wrap up our podcast, let me, because this is very sweeping, very disruptive. There are 4 constituencies we reach, maybe real quick. What's your message to each one with regard to this? Start with the enterprise, who we haven't talked about.
Enterprise, the laggards who have so many layers of approval: security,
Right.
purchasing, technology, finance. AI is transitioning all of those divisions right now. And the biggest challenge is, how do you deploy it? Once you move from the conversation being an afterthought to being front and center and then being the driver, the reason is we're moving from a text-based communication, when I say text, keyboard, to voice, video, and gesture. So voice, visual, gesture are going to change how we do things. Pretty soon, if you point to something, there'll be enough cameras around and sensors that it knows you pointed at something. Just like when you take something off the shelf in some supermarkets now, it automatically dings your checkout. And then when you walk out of the store, it rings you up. That kind of technology is coming. It's not Minority Report. It's here today. So enterprise, catch up and stop waiting, because at the end of the day, your ketchup will be mustard if you wait too long.
What about our friends in the service provider community?
Service provider community has to start thinking of who they're really serving and what they're doing. I've always been a big believer that there's a big market, there's big money in small. We talked about that back in my days at Sky Switch as CFO, and you were there and we did a podcast about that. The long and the short of the service providers are embracing AI. Those that are going to win, but they have to be offering something that's different. That's the key. You can't be doing a me too, me also. You better understand what the giants are doing, because the giants are turning everyday services, or what I used to call features as a product. And there's an awful lot of one-trick ponies out there. Those features in a product are being commoditized and being given away for free. We're not having a race to zero. It's already a race to existence.
Wow. Okay. So pay attention. Yet there's a great opportunity for them. And now you're also saying, as we wrap it up, MSPs and channel partners, there's an opportunity there for them?
Absolutely. For the channel partner, the MSP, it's picking the right ponies in the race. But what it also means is go back to the days of knowing how to integrate. The role of the integrator has finally come back to life. The difference is that integrator is an AI platform that knows how to do it. So the winners will be like Zapier and Make and Pipedream and IFTTT, and all those have been doing that already. But you have to go one layer deeper and look at the likes of Composio, who simply connect all the things to the world by MCP servers. So if you're an MSP, you better be thinking MCP.
Andy, as we wrap things up today, I really want to thank you. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 podcasts on each of these questions and each of these topics. We're going to do it. We're going to have some additional breakouts on this. But for now, where can people learn more about yourself and Communicano?
Well, you can go to communicano.com, or up until the time I moved my new staging site over, communicano.net is a staging site. You can always go to andyabramson.com and read my most important posts, or follow me on LinkedIn. And if you want to reach me, just send an email to CEO@Communicano. That's COMUNICANO. Remember, Communicano only has one M. We know who doesn't listen when they send it to the 2. That's how you find me, Doug. Or they find me with you somewhere, because whenever you're somewhere, I try and find you.
That's right. We're always tagging each other all the time on LinkedIn, but everybody take a look, watch Andy's stuff on Substack, watch his stuff on LinkedIn, pay attention to this topic. It's big. Andy, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Doug.
Make voice valuable again. Tressic turns every call and text into action automatically. Learn more at tressic.cloud.